Good afternoon and welcome to Find Your Sparkle with Jen, where you'll be inspired, informed, and influenced. I'm your host, Jennifer Stewart, owner of Jazz Potential and creator of Find Your Sparkle. And today I am super excited to have Wendy Bjork, who is a best-selling author and nationally syndicated columnist who empowers women to see beyond whatever challenges that they are navigating. She inspires them to live in acceptance, creating massive ripple effects in the world as she teaches them to simplify and purify their life. Her heartsofwellness.com platform is the place for women to begin receiving the support they are seeking, and they create their journey back to wholeness with Wendy lighting their path. And not only that, Wendy is an amazing, awesome friend of mine. So I'm so glad that we get to connect again, Wendy. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be in here again with you in this space because
oh my golly, it's been a while. So I know that there has been so much that has been taking place, not only in our lives, but also in the world as we know it. A lot of things have changed. A lot of things have really, a lot of people's views have changed, and the way that people are living has really changed. You and I had a really great discussion yesterday, which is really what precipitated us having this conversation today. So let's just back up a little bit and have you give a little bit of an overview about who you are and what you do and how you do guide women.
Sure. And I think it goes back to when I was a teenager and I started having symptoms of something I couldn't figure out for myself. And I went to many doctors trying to have them help me. And after like 6 years, they diagnosed me with having multiple sclerosis. And I really never, it's hard to take something like that on, when you're in your early 20s, because you just want to live your life like everybody else, right? And just having finished college, and starting my first real full-time job, I didn't want to be weighted down with anything. I just really wanted to live my life. And even though I didn't know it at the time, that was really a big opening for me to kind of take charge of my health. Even though I didn't do all the right things until much later, I think it was just a big clue of, like what was to come. And what I help people with now is standing up for themselves and just asking more questions, knowing that your voice is powerful. And just because we go to see a doctor doesn't mean we have to take their words as our own. So that's really, I think, been huge for me to realize over the years and to help other people realize.
I think that is such an important thing to really acknowledge, and for people out there to really stop and think about that, because you and I have both experienced that in different ways. But for myself, when I was 19 and I broke my back and I was told that I was never going to have children, that I could never play sports, and that I would have a hunchback, and that's by a leading expert. So imagine if I had listened to that. And just by the way, for those of you who don't know, I do have 2 biological kids and I've always played sports. I don't really feel limited by anything. And I'm certainly never, ever going to have a hunchback. But that really brings us to that point where people really need to start to get that and to understand that it's not just me, it's not just you. We all have the power, we all have the capability, we all have the potential to be able to tap in and to be able to, really listen to ourselves. Can you talk, and I want to share after a bit, you may even mention it, but we've had some really great experiences over the years that we have known each other. Some of them have been just like, wow, mind blowing. Like we have that saying, you can't make that bleep up, right? And it's just, it's really amazing when you're open to receive. So can you sort of back up a little bit, talk about how you've kind of integrated things into your life to take charge?
I think it happened when, I had my kid, I have 2 boys and they were probably like 4 and 6. And I just couldn't figure out, I kind of knew why I felt like crud every day, because I was working full time. I, had these kids I was supposed to be super mom for. You get home from work and you're supposed to have this fabulous dinner for everybody. And I was just like exhausted. You go to bed at night and you wake up tired, and it's just like this hamster wheel that you're on. And then you go see your doctor every 6 months or every year, and they tell you, well, you're a mom, you're supposed to be tired. It's like, yeah,
right. What else can you expect?
Yeah. It's like, but all my other friends are like this too. And they're not tripping on their feet in the grocery store and falling down or doing other things that I'm doing that don't look the best. So that really made me want to dive in more to why I felt cruddy all the time. And because the kids love the library, that's really where I started, was just like looking for books on, I knew my body had a lot of inflammation from what I was dealing with, with the MS, and like, how can I get feeling better? And this was a whole, we call it a rabbit hole, but it was a whole trajectory for a few years for me to dive in and just really figure it out. And, 10 years ago, that was really not anything normal.
Oh my golly. Think about how much, we've grown, us individually and collectively also, which, sometimes people who, I guess, who, aren't aware of some of the things that you and I are aware of, don't realize that. But there's a lot of expansion going on, and there's a lot of people who are starting to, I guess, hear more things and stories from people like you, people like me, people like, lots of our friends and colleagues that we associate with, who've witnessed and had a lot of really amazing things and experiences and are being able to share. So the big thing, I think, with social media and opportunities like this is for us to be able to share, some of those really cool things that have happened along the way, those turning points, those epiphanies, those healings, those releases, some of the, significant things, and how that has really, impacted not only our lives, but for heaven's sakes, all of, people around us. And, we talked in your introduction, the ripple effect. Holy moly. Incredible, right? It's absolutely incredible. So do you have any of those kinds of moments that you can share that people may be able to resonate with?
Yeah. And for some of the people that I've worked with, just helping them feel validated. That's what we all want. We want to be seen and heard. Like you said about your back, you don't want to be told you're going to be laying in a bed the rest of your life. I mean, what a terrible thing to tell someone. People don't realize how powerful their words are, whether it's good or bad. When you say something nice to someone, that might be the only thing they hear all day that is positive.
That's so true.
Yeah. And you hear stories about people who were going to actually commit suicide, and somebody said something nice to them that day, and they're like, whoa, I am meant to be here. I am special. I have a purpose. That's what people need to realize. It doesn't matter what your purpose is. You have a purpose, and you hear it in your heart. And I didn't talk about having MS publicly until like 5 years ago. There is no way I would have gotten on this podcast and talked about it.
Even when you and I first met, I mean, that was when you were kind of just starting, to be more comfortable and getting used to talking about it. So for, when we first met, I mean, I'm so excited for you to see how much expansion and growth that you've had. I mean, you've got some really amazing, amazing things. I want to bring up this because I talk about this all the time, because this is with energy work. I think some of the audience know that I do energy work, and some people are still, I think, a little miffed by it. Some people are a little afraid by it. Some people aren't sure what to think of it. Some people think it has a religious connotation, so there's a lot of misnomers and myths out there. However, from my perspective, we're all energy. Everything is energy. We're all connected, and source, whatever name anyone decides to call source by, creator, universe, God, Allah, Buddha, whatever it is. So I use a lot of different terms myself, but whatever it is for you, ultimately, that is where it comes from. And it's, it's kind of a gift that we all have, and being able to, I'm able to act as a catalyst to be able to help my clients release. And I know the exact story that I'm going to share, because it was one of those like blow your mind apart, things that you and I kind of both actually went back in our chairs. And is it okay if I share this, Wendy?
Sure, you can share it because I still
Okay.
talk about it too.
Pardon?
I still talk about it too.
Oh my gosh, it was incredible. So Wendy and I were doing some emotion code, and I was releasing some things for Wendy. And this big, and the way that I describe it, it was like an angry comet that was dense, dark gray with the holes and everything in it, with all these spiky flames around it, that was stuck in Wendy's solar plexus, and it burst out flying. And Wendy and I literally, and this is all energetic, okay, literally went back. And oh my gosh, everything kind of like, it was like right after that, everything kind of went poof for you. And you had just had an experience that someone had told you that either the day or 2 days prior that you had a block in your solar plexus.
Yeah. So that's what's so wild about it. It's like you said, everyone is connected. And whether you buy into that right now or not, it's true. Our world is changing so fast and everything is happening so fast that if you have something pop into your head, instead of, telling it to go away or denying it, just think about it and let it kind of sink in and see what happens. Because I never would have believed this. Just like Jennifer said, 5 years ago, if she would have told me I had a blockage in my solar plexus, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, whatever, lady.
Sure.
Right. So
Yeah.
what changed for you though, to start to be open to receive that?
I think just because there are so many people in my life that are telling me the same thing, that it can't be made up. And there's no way, some of these people have never met, they would never have met. And there's just too many, people say coincidences, but I call them synchronicities now, because the people that we meet on our path are here to help us. We are here to help each other. So once I realized that, then that made me become more open to things like my solar plexus having a giant blockage escaping. And, just owning your truth. Like I said before, owning who you are and owning your voice. And that opens everything up, I believe.
Oh my gosh, that is a perfect segment into our break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about that, Wendy. So when we come back, we're going to hear more about owning your voice, owning your truth. You're listening to CIOE 97.5 FM, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Find Your Sparkle with Jen. Welcome back, Wendy. I'm loving this conversation. We've been talking a bit about, different things that are happening and being open to new things, i.e. maybe some energy work and doing some releasing and getting rid of some blocks and just opening to opportunities and things that come to you. So your intuition, things that start to pop into your head, and owning your truth. So Wendy was kind of talking a bit about, getting into that, really starting to get familiar with who you are, owning your truth and what you're here for. What is your calling? What is your higher self saying to you? So I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on that, Wendy.
I think that, when you hear something or something happens, and like I said about, you just say, well, that was a coincidence, or, it was a chance event. But I think they're all linked. I think we are all linked, and the synchronicities that happen are just, getting our pieces together for our journey, to help us along our way, to help us find what we're here for. And part of that is using your voice and sticking up for yourself. And, if somebody else tells you, well, doing that isn't in the Bible, or doing this isn't in, this religion, or even if you dive into that. And honestly, I grew up Catholic. We didn't read the Bible because we weren't supposed to. But now that I am, there's a lot of things that are in there. And, it talks about intuition, and it talks about essential oils, and it talks about so many things that people brush off.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, what are they really reading? And people sometimes just say that maybe I'm too much for them, but then they circle back around after several, just like happened to me, several other people are saying the same thing, where I didn't know the other person, or they don't know me, or
Mhm.
so I think it's just important to take the time, whether it's 5 minutes a day, and just sit with your thoughts. Sit where it's quiet, go outside, and just let the things process that have been in your head swirling around, instead of
Yeah.
just
Some people I know, and I'm sure that you've heard this before too, Wendy, because I know you work with a lot of people as well. A lot of times people will say, well, I can't sit with my thoughts, or that they won't turn off, or I can't process, or I can't let it happen.
Mhm.
And I mean, we both know that whatever you say and whatever you believe is what's going to happen. So the key to that, do you have any key suggestions for people switching and having kind of a paradigm shift in their thinking?
Yes, instead of saying what you don't want to happen, like, I don't want to gain any weight, say, oh, I feel great today. Even if you don't maybe feel your best, if you keep saying that, you're going to feel better. And I have people in my life that are always looking for the worst outcome. They'll say, well, that's never going to happen. And I say, well,
Mhm.
don't say that out loud, because that's really what you're saying that you want to happen. You can't say the opposite and expect the good effect to happen.
Right. And I find a lot of people expect that. People expect all this really great stuff to happen, but yet when they're thinking what their thoughts are, just it doesn't match. So
Mhm.
there's no possibility of it ever entering into your life if it doesn't match. It's like, the frequency thing, the radio, if you're trying to reach C100 and you're on a 97.5, or you're trying to reach 97.5 and you're on C100, you can't, it's not going to happen. They need to match and sync up, and when they do, then it's going to materialize.
Right.
People, I think, forget about that. And not only, people in their situations would think, when we say, our thoughts matter, our
Mhm.
thoughts are going to produce, the energy, the emotions, the feelings, the words that come out of our mouth, and ultimately they're going to attract whatever that is. So if you're constantly, and I know that women have an especially hard time with this, the self-talk,
Mhm.
right? All of you, I want you to think about, would you consider yourself your own best friend? I mean, it's taken a lot of years for me, but I can really say that I do feel like I am my own best friend now. That's not to say that Miss Nasty Mean Girl doesn't, show up on occasion, but I think now I have more tools available for me to be
Mhm.
able to combat that, and not necessarily get dragged down as for a long period of time. Not saying I'm not going to get dragged down, or that I'm not going to have those days, but they're not going to last as long.
Right. And like you said about the mean girl, we all have a mean girl in our head. We're our own worst critic most of the time. And
Hmm.
you put on a shirt and you're like, oh, well, that's really ugly. Or just looking in the mirror, can you say something nice to yourself? Most of the time we look in the mirror and we're like, ugh, we have to turn that around. We have to, for our own health, our wellness, and so we can help our kids, so we can help other people. We just need to be nicer to ourselves.
Hmm.
As it's ingrained in us not to be nice.
I know, and it's acceptable. It's the norm. It is socially acceptable. And when you're kind to yourself, sometimes people still, I believe it is shifting, but sometimes still people will say that you're being selfish. And
Yeah.
there's a complete total difference of being selfish and loving yourself. You
Mhm.
need to be your own best friend, and self-love is self-care. And
Mhm.
that means that you're filling your cup and being able to help other people. I love the analogy of, when your cup runneth over, right? That's when you can serve. We often think about the cup half full, half empty, but what about overflowing? I
Mhm.
know many of us, myself, I'm pretty sure you can relate to this too, have had many times where our cup has not only been empty, but dried out, ready to crack.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy smokes. What about replenishing that and filling it up so that it's bountiful? And
Mhm.
then you're serving from that place of abundance rather than, being a martyr or feeling that you're obliged or taking from yourself, because that's what I think some of us have got stuck in, that pattern, codependent, making everybody happy, people pleasing. We spend our lives, right, putting everybody else first. What about us? What about us? And then on top of that, we're giving to everyone else. We're not giving anything to ourselves, but yet we still expect ourselves to be able to perform 100% and be super women.
Yes. And that whole people pleasing thing, that was a defense mechanism from thousands of years ago when I think everything flipped around. So we need to just, I think, bypass that. People are okay. You don't have to do everything for everybody.
Oh my gosh. And I think that awareness is the first step. And then figuring out, where, like asking yourself some questions. This is what sometimes I know for myself. I mean, life is a continuous journey, and I literally learn new things about myself every single day. And sometimes it's big things that I would think that I would have known at my age, and in hindsight seem pretty freaking obvious. But, at that time, it's like, oh my golly, wow, how did I not get that? Or I know that I've also thought that I have gotten something and then realized, oh my heavens, I have not gotten that at all. And then, but you don't know until you actually get it. And it's all growing, and there's so many different layers, and it's fun. It's a journey. I mean, sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's not easy, but you have to have the light in order to see the dark, and the like, you can't, the dichotomy is huge. It's incredible. What I know, you and I were talking yesterday, and the word goddess comes up a lot. And I mean, for me, it's like, I really want to embrace who I am. And when, someone asks me now how old I am, I'm ageless. And that is kind of my mindset that I have decided several years ago. That's kind of my mindset. I'm whatever age I am. I'm ageless. And I find that I've always been, able to sort of integrate into whatever kind of group that I'm in. And I love that. And it's fun, but it's not a label. It's not just a number, and so many, ageism is real. And and why do we stick numbers on it when this time of life for people is so amazing and incredible? And I think we have it a little bit backwards in the Western world with the whole age thing, because this is like the most exciting part. So I think that we are on a little bit of a mission to help change that too. What do you think, Wendy?
Yeah, I just consider myself aging backwards, and
Yes,
it's all about the judgment, losing that judgment and the comparison. Think of the billions of dollars made every day because we're judging and comparing ourselves to someone else. It's just unreal. If we all just stopped, how many companies would lose money just in a day? Didn't buy something that maybe we thought someone else used and that'll make us feel better or look better. We just need to stop judging ourselves and comparing ourselves.
It sounds so easy, but it is, and in theory, it's easy, but it's not simple, or it's simple, but it's not easy, I should say. Simple, but not easy. And it is one of those things that I'm much, much better than what I was years ago. But I mean, I am perfectly imperfect, and I still have my days, and I can still get caught up in things. But I think for myself, I really am making an effort to be cognizant of more of how I feel and what my energy is. And when I go down that path, you feel a shift in your energy, right? So when you feel that shift in your energy, that's the time to stop and think, oh, what's happening here, right? What's going on? Where did that thought just come from? Then you can start to gain more control. But most of us, we wait till we get that thought in our head that's already taken hold, that's kind of, has a big grip on us. And then it makes it a little more challenging, to get it to go back to that neutral place.
Yeah, because I want to just keep ruminating.
Exactly. And that's easier, right? I mean, that's how we're kind of programmed. It's the fight, the ego's there for our protection, allegedly, but it's the thing that holds us back. And it's the thing that we oftentimes let lead our lives. Um, I wanted to say really quick, because we're almost out of time. I'd love to continue this conversation in a bonus segment, Wendy, if you're up for that.
Oh, sure.
All right. So before we do go, can you let our audience know what makes you sparkle?
I think what makes me sparkle is just, the things that I write about. It's to empower others. It's to help them relate back to me and to see that whatever they're doing, it's okay. You're in the moment of your life, and it's okay. Just remember that, to give yourself grace.
Oh my golly, grace is huge. Acceptance is huge. And this has been a really great conversation, and I'm really looking forward to continuing it. But for now, you're listening to CIOE 97.5 FM. And remember to go out and do something that makes you sparkle today and every single day. Bye for now, friends.
Bye-bye.
So welcome to the bonus segment. We had to keep talking because I felt like there was so much more that we had to say, and we were on a bit of a roll.
Yes,
So
definitely.
it's like there's so many different avenues that we could go. So what was the last thing before we finished where you were thinking like, oh my gosh, let's take it off to that. Let's go there.
Oh, and we were talking about the judgment and the
Yeah.
self-criticism and how it's ingrained in us. And that's
Yeah.
not how we're designed. It's not how we lived thousands of years ago. I mean, if you think about it, we as women ran the show.
Mm-hmm.
The small villages, the women were the healers, because no one can be here without us. So that's where the leadership is. And we've gotten away from that, since probably 1,000 years ago. But before that, that's that's how things, I think, are circling back to. We talked yesterday about the medical systems, and the medical systems in the US were phenomenal. And I think when that pandemic happened, then there were a lot of people that made choices and then they exited. So there's a lot less people, I should say, that are serving. And we just don't have the level of care that we used to. So that's why it's important to know yourself, know what you're dealing with, and to speak up for yourself.
It is extremely important. And we have a very similar situation in Canada. We're losing healthcare professionals all over the place and trying to replenish them. I mean, there's, emergency rooms that can't be operational because they don't have staff. It's sad. I mean, it's really, really sad. And I know for both of us, like we've taken more of a preventative role in our health and well-being rather than, the reactive role, which is where, again, like we've been conditioned throughout society. I mean, certainly throughout, my lifetime, I don't know anything different than, you go to the doctor when you're sick. What about preventing being sick? What about looking after yourself so that you don't get sick? What about taking control of your own health? And then you're able to better serve others. You're able to, look after yourself. You're able to be an example for other people. You're able to help people to maybe be a little bit more open, accepting, maybe experiment a little, maybe give it a try, maybe get out of that, paradigm where fear is basically running us.
Yeah.
I'll stop talking now. I know you have a million things going through your head, probably.
No, and the worst thing that I hear from people is, I'm going to die from something, so I don't really care.
Oh,
It's like, yes, we are all going to die someday, but I don't plan on going for a long time
me
and
neither.
fully enjoying this experience. So, not having a giant bowl of ice cream every night, if that helps me to live longer, or not to have a glass of wine, a couple of wines a night, whatever. And I'm not saying that any of that's bad, but just take a look at what things you can modify in your life. And I think when people try something, a week later, they say, well, I don't feel any different. Well,
Right.
probably not, because if you've been
Yeah.
doing this thing for years, it's going to take a while to adjust in your body and for you to feel better. And like you
That's
said,
a
just experiment.
that's a really good point, because we want instant gratification.
Mhm.
And that is so detrimental to our well-being and our mindset. I mean, that is pure ego based without question. Everything now, it just doesn't happen like that. Change, like you said, it takes years to have gotten there. Everything is not going to just all of a sudden change in the flash of an instant. Although, with quantum physics, a lot of things can change like that, but that's a whole other interview and a whole other conversation.
Yes.
But if we're getting back to, where people really have to just own where you are, own your responsibility for your health, and make that decision. Like Wendy said, we have way more control.
Mhm.
And, we control what goes in our mouth. We can control, the environment that we're in. We can control any habits that we have. We
Mhm.
do have a lot of control. So we just need to own that and stop giving it away
Mhm.
to everybody else.
Right. And it's okay to do things different. It's becoming more and more common to, for example, be in a restaurant and that there's a gluten-free menu now, because
Yes.
wheat in the United States is kind of like Frankenwheat. There is no nutrition in it. And the gluten just clogs up our system. Our system can't digest that. It's grass-based, how that was grown. So we're not meant to eat grass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my golly. And that just, I mean, there's so many different conversations that this way that this could go. And I think for me, it's really, really, really getting back to remembering who we are
Mhm.
and who we have thought we are for, I mean, my whole lifetime. Even, I've been involved with self-development and self-growth my whole life since I was a kid. And I can tell you, even in the last couple of years, the expansion and the openness and the new things that have come into my reality is amazing.
Mhm.
And a few years ago, I would have, like you said, like with energy work for you a few years ago, you would have thought, no way, like, are you crazy, lady? But this stuff, I mean, it's like quantum physics is epigenetics is all absolutely amazing, mind-blowing, and true.
Right.
And I get that if you can't see it, it makes it really hard for somebody to get it. I totally get it. But when you've experienced it yourself, it's like, holy smokes, this is like the best thing ever. And just totally wow.
Mm-hmm. And it's just about, like you said, taking things in small steps. Just do one step at a time. If
Yeah.
you change what you're eating, just change one thing or add in one vegetable. Don't
Mhm.
try to do a massive switch, because
Yes.
it's overwhelming. And then you're going to be like, I can't even deal with this.
Yeah, you
So,
set yourself up for failure when you take too much on. It reminded me, Wendy, when you were talking about that, like doing the, one thing at a time, being mindful when you're eating, and especially if we're talking food, like if we're specifically right now, I know when I am being mindful of what I'm eating, everything is so much better. It's more enjoyable. I take my time. I actually taste the whole bite rather than being on autopilot. I used to be on autopilot and shove food in my mouth, and I don't think I might have tasted the first bite and maybe the last bite, and everything in between. A lot of times, I didn't really take the time to enjoy it. And
mhm.
I think for me personally, that has made a big difference in my choices of what I eat and how I eat, along with the portions that I eat. So it really impacted everything,
Mhm.
not just one little area, but everything.
Right. And if you've ever been to Europe, they take hour, you take an hour or two. Your dinner
Yes.
is in your experience to basically celebrate the end of the day. It's not like at my house where, half the time by the time I get to the table, the food's almost gone. Everybody's got their plate half gone. And I'm like, well, I hope it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for waiting.
Mhm. Yeah.
But but it does make a difference. It is to make it more meaningful for yourself, and then you really do enjoy it. And I think that's something that we forget about too, is enjoyment and having pleasure
Mhm.
and not feeling guilty if we have pleasure. And why not find the pleasure in the simple little daily things and gifts of life?
Yes.
It makes things so much better. And I'm not saying that I do that all the time, because I don't. But when I'm in that mode,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Wow, that was weird. I don't know how that'll be a big little bit of a cutout there. That's weird.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So how do you feel about all of that? I know that was a big, like a little bit of a rant, but I
Well,
think it makes a difference. Being mindful.
yes, definitely being mindful. And, instead of just ramming through your day, which we all do it, I do it too. It's like I have
Yep.
8,000 things I want to do. But in reality, are there three that I can just focus on and get those done? And then how does that make me feel? If I get those three done, then I can go on to more. And
Yeah.
I think that goes back to just giving ourselves the grace, because we each have the same 24 hours. We need to sleep 7 to 8 of it, or we feel like garbage. And then we have the rest that we have to figure out what we want to do with it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that there has been so many things that are, opening and changing, and different doors that are opening. Is there anything that jumps out to you that you would like to share that maybe people, might not be aware of, that you would kind of like to put into their reality a little bit? Maybe give some thought provoking things.
I think, as we said earlier, what people tell you are their thoughts and opinions, and you can't change that. So if you have an idea and you want to run with it, you have to try it. And that happened to me, and it happens to me a lot. I've been doing podcasts. I'm on the podcast list, and I pay a small fee every month. And I don't know how many people have told me, why do you do that? It's like, well, I'm choosing to do it. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I know the doors that have opened because of it have led to other opportunities, like Jen said. So we don't know what our future is because we can't see it. We can just see what we're doing in the present. And if you have an idea, like I said, try it and just run with it, because you don't
And when
know.
you feel Sorry, I was going to say, when you feel guided to do it, do it. And don't go telling all of your friends and family, because
Yes.
they're the ones who are going to poo-poo the idea and tell you that you're cuckoo or crazy.
Mhm. Yes.
You've talked, find some like even a group or an online group, like Wendy and I both have. We're part of each other's communities, and
Mhm.
we can share that kind of stuff with each other and within our little groups that we have, and receive all of the encouragement
Mhm.
that we need. And
Yes.
that makes a huge difference, right? Having your tribe does make a big, giant size difference.
Having your circle. We each need a circle around us, like you said, because you go telling your spouse, your partner, your kids, your friends, your family what you're doing, and they're all going to discourage you for the most part. I have one cousin, and we are on the same page. But other than that, I don't tell anybody I'm related to anything I'm doing. And if they figure it out on their own, so be it. But
Right.
you're on
Yeah.
your journey, they're on
Right.
theirs. So,
It's so true. And as much as we may want people to come along with us on our journey, and I know that myself, I've tried to get people, I've try to drag them along with me. And now I know you just can't, no matter how much I want to bring them along with me, unless they're willing and ready and able and wanting to do it themselves, it's not going to happen. And it doesn't matter how much I want that.
Mhm.
It's their journey. And that took me a little while.
Yeah, it took a few times of getting shot down. And
Yeah.
my siblings still make fun of me at the table. They'll sit there and say, sugar, gluten, and wheat or something. And I'm like, whatever, you eat whatever you want. I don't care.
Exactly. And sometimes you have to have broad shoulders, and that's okay too. I just
Mhm.
usually laugh it off.
Yeah,
It's all
me
good.
too.
Yeah, it is. It's all good. One thing I did want to say that just popped into my head, and I feel like because it popped in my head, I have to talk about it. We were talking earlier, you had mentioned about the mirror and not, looking at yourself and always picking things apart about yourself. And I wanted to share that years ago, before I lost like my almost 50 pounds, I avoided mirrors at all cost. And I can't remember if you were in Nashville when I did that speech about that. But it was, I literally, if I had to put makeup on, and people would think I was crazy, but I literally would just look at my eye where I needed to put the mascara, the eyeliner, the eyeshadow, or my lips. I don't need to look at my lips because I'm like, that's just part of who I am. That's not really makeup, as lipstick is part of who I am. But like anything else. And I was very, very good at only narrowing in and not looking at
Mhm.
any other part of my body. And I literally would avoid, if I happened to glance, I would be mean, 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 and say nasty, nasty things to myself. So it was better to avoid it. And a big thing for me was doing the mirror work for one thing was huge. And I had done that years and years ago. And I knew, so we all have the answers in us, just by the way, too. We already have everything that we need within us. It's just a matter of extracting and excavating it. And like you were saying, sitting with things. So you can get a lot of answers when you sit with the question and sit with, with those thoughts. But the mirror work really was what made a huge difference for me.
Mhm.
And starting baby steps, just looking and, hi, beautiful, I love you. And
Mhm.
it made a difference. And it made me want to throw up at first.
Yes.
And sometimes I cried. And sometimes I was like kicking and screaming and really not wanting to, and made faces and like it was, through tears saying, hi, beautiful, I love you.
Mhm.
It was hard. I'm not going to lie. It was hard.
Yeah.
But, then I got to the point where I could start to look at other parts of my body and be thankful, like for my back. I mean, my whole body. When I think about it, thank you, body, because you didn't cut out on me. You didn't give up like they said you would.
Mhm.
You've kept me strong. You've helped me have 2 babies. You keep me, I'm in good shape. I'm probably in better shape now than when I've been in a long time. But, thank you, body, and finding things to be thankful for, to take time to actually be grateful for your body. And
Mhm.
that makes a big, giant size difference.
Yeah, it does. And I actually wrote an article, it was a few weeks ago, and I called it, Why Does a Mirror Make Us Cringe? Because that is our automatic response. And I just dove into like who even invented mirrors. And I mean, people used to use like obsidian to look at themselves or the reflection in the water, but they didn't always have that knee-jerk reaction of, oh, you look crappy today, or you're just, like you said, you're fat, or you have way too much. That has just happened with programming and comparing ourselves and judging ourselves. And I know it's hard when you feel that way about yourself, how to let that go. But it's just one step at a time, like you said. Find one thing about yourself that you like and just start practicing that in the mirror. And then just keep stacking, because you can't do it overnight. If you don't really
No,
feel like you love yourself, there's no way you're going to say that in the mirror. Just start with one thing.
yeah, yeah. And it's not easy, but it is worth it to do it, because it's to be able to look at yourself and smile, and not in a conceited or narcissistic way at all, but to look at yourself and not judge yourself is
Mhm.
huge. Not saying that that I don't have days, because I still have days, but mostly I'm okay. I'm good. When I look, I'm like, okay, I love you, Jen.
Mhm.
Right? I'm not picking apart the faults like oh, look at your pores, they're so big, or those. I mean, we can look at those wrinkles. Oh my God, you're getting like, holy moly, right? I mean, that's easy to do. It's a
Mhm.
lot. It's like, forget it. Step
Right.
back and remember you're awesome. That's
Mhm.
what you have to remember. And
Yeah.
we're all beings of love and light and energy. And oh, I know one other thing before we go, I wanted to say, we were talking about thoughts and thoughts being energy. And sometimes we can convince ourselves that if we have a thought, it's true.
Mhm.
And that can be very dangerous because they're not necessarily true. So I just wanted to put that out there. It was one of those, anecdotes. Just wanted to say, remember, just
Mhm.
because you have a thought doesn't make it true.
Yes, exactly.
Anything else before we go, Wendy?
Yeah, I think if we just start living in acceptance of what is happening, or how we feel, or how we might look that day, just accepting ourselves for who we are and just be in the present. Things that happened in the past, that was the past. It doesn't matter. So just be in the now. And it's hard to do. I'm not saying any of this is easy, because it's a daily game for
And
me.
commitment. Yeah. And
And
sometimes I heard a quote, life is full of moments of remembering and forgetting. And I was like, oh my golly, that is so true. So don't beat yourself up if you forget. When you remember, just get back on track.
yes, I have lots of
Awesome.
sticky notes everywhere, and that's what we need to do. Just keep reminding ourselves to remember.
Absolutely. Well, this has been really fun. Awesome. And I think that there's going to be a number of people who are going to get a lot of value out of this. Remember to smile. That's another thing that is really important and can help to release endorphins and make you feel good just by smiling. And it's contagious. That ripple effect is huge.
Mhm.
So thank you everyone for listening. And for heaven's sakes, always do something that makes you sparkle every day and several times a day, if at all possible. Thank you, Wendy. I love you. It's been awesome having you here.
Thank you. I love you too. And I just am excited for what comes next for us.
Me too. Thank you. Bye, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.